How's it going, everybody? Doing a drink review here today and a gum chewing NFL recap of the first weekend of the playoffs. I'll get to that in a few minutes, but I'll be reviewing Monster Energy Ultra Rosa. I'm pretty sure I didn't do this one. I went through my playlist and I did not see it in any of the pictures. There was one that didn't have a picture, and I would assume that wouldn't have been this one, but it probably was. Nah. But let's see how this is. Same as everything. What is the, they don't have a massive caffeine content in theirs, I don't think. Where is it? It should say it somewhere, right? 150. That's not low, but then what it's on. Smells alright. That's pretty good. It has a strawberry taste. I want to say like a strawberry cream taste. That's what that kind of tastes like. That's actually pretty good. I always try to check the ingredients to see, but it's just freaking unnatural stuff. It's all, not unnatural. What's the word? Why can't I remember the word? Artificial. It has a strawberry cream taste to it, though. I like that. That's actually pretty good. I gotta say, that's one of the better ones I've had. Energy drink. This actually might be one I would drink again. That's what it has to be. It's like a straw. It tastes like a strawberry, but like a strawberry cream. Like if you have those candies, they have that kind of taste. That's what it really tastes like. It's nice though. This just tastes good as a drink in general. For sure. I like that. I would give that a high score. I'll give it a score in a few minutes. It's like, I wouldn't necessarily say it's refreshing, but it's just a nice, it's like a nice drink to have. Like, and I don't get that with a lot of the energy drinks. Like, some are alright, and some are good, but they don't, like, it's not something I'd go back to, because I was never a big energy drink guy until I started making these videos. It's the only time I drink them, so. But I can see myself drinking this one again. Anyway, I will give a review on that. It's not going to be a super in-depth recap. I basically just know from highlights and reading stuff. The big one was the Jaguars coming back down 27-0. I was paying attention to that game on the ESPN Gamecast, and I like to go on Instagram, like the team pages, because I like to see how the fans react. You watch the fans go from the team's the biggest pile of crap ever to we're incredible in like a quarter. But Lawrence threw 4 picks. They were down 27-7 at the half, but they were down 27-0. It really looked like one of those games that would be like that 42-49, like 14 type game, right? I want to say like 2 of the picks were not Lawrence's fault. They were tipped. They had a fumble as well, I think. But when I saw the scores 27-7 at the half, I was like, Apparently the Chargers, according to their fans, I I follow them somewhat because I'm a fan of Denver, but apparently they blow big leads, which always sucks, right? So it was 27-7 at the half. I'm like, maybe the Jaguars will make this interesting. And then I just went, I think I went on to something else. I come back and I'm like, they won, like, what was it, 31-30. I was like, wow. And Lawrence popped forward. No, he went through, I think he wrote one touchdown in the first half, right? It was 27-7 at the half, right? Either way, he ripped it up. He had like 200-something yards, 3 touchdowns the second half. And they win the game. That's crazy. That's huge for his development too, because he had a great second year, and his first playoff game to really not be doing well at all, awful, regardless if the picks are his fault or not. But to bounce back, because even if he had bounced back and they had lost that game 34-31, you'd still be like, he had a nice bounce back there in the second half, you know. But to win that game too is huge. That's huge for his confidence and huge for his development. That's a big deal. They got to play the Chiefs now, so if they win that game, that would be one of the all-time upsets. I don't think they're going to win that game, but the Jaguars are that team where the second they made the playoffs and won the division, that was a successful season, in my opinion. A playoff win, that's huge. They're the kind of team that goes in, plays the Chiefs, just go nuts. They could still get blown out easily. It's the Chiefs, right? But go all out, right? Got nothing to lose. The win. A loss for the Jaguars means nothing. If the Chiefs lost that game, they'd be looked at as such a failure, you know? That's what sucks when you're a really good team. It's like, you could sit here and say Chiefs are the team to beat in the league, right? You could sit here and say they're the best team, right? Other teams are close, Bills and Bengals. Obviously, the Bengals beat them last year in the playoffs. Bills played them really close. They can be beat, but teams like the Jaguars aren't going to beat them, right? But they're the team that you would think, okay, they're the ones that at least make the AFC Championship, right? They're a good team, a really good team, but that's why it sucks. When you're, like, really good in a way, it kind of sucks because if you lose, it's like you get shit on so badly. It is maintaining its flavor down, and the gum's not really affecting it. But the Chiefs are going to win that game, I'd say. I could see the Jags keeping it somewhat close, but the Chiefs can't lose that game. Bengals beat the Ravens in a tight game that it was 17-17, and the Ravens fumbled on like the 2-yard. The Bengals 2, and the Bengals returned it. That's a crazy way. I want to say that was early in the fourth. That score stayed 24-17. So that was pretty crazy. Bengals, a lot of people saying the Bengals looked a little shaky, and the Ravens did not have Lamar Jackson, so you can't get really on them too much. That one, I wasn't paying attention to that game much at all. I think that was a night game. Was that the Sunday night game? I can't remember. This is the AFC ones I'll do first. Bills beat the Dolphins. The Dolphins were on their third string QB, and the Dolphins played. They were playing that game tough into the third quarter. I think they had the lead in the third quarter, or maybe they had the lead going into the half. Or were they down? I don't know. They had a lead, I think, in the third quarter, and then it started clicking for the Bills. Josh Allen was doing his thing. A lot of their fans are concerned because he apparently throws picks. But same thing. The Dolphins had nothing to lose there. And that third stringer played pretty well. The Bills are another team where you expect them to win that game, you know. We'll talk about the fraud team in the playoffs in a minute. Because there's always a team. You hate to say there are four, but there's always that team that is going to get beat. They're susceptible to being beaten because they're really not as good as they seem. But we got Bills-Bengals. Obviously, that's a rematch from the game that got canceled because of was it Hamlin with the cardiac arrest. I think that's going to be at a neutral site too, right? So that's going to be interesting. It kind of sucks it came to that because I understand why they stopped the game, but the fact that they didn't replay that game at any point, I don't know. Even if it was like 3 days later, I'd be like, all right, guys, are you up for it? At least ask the players and stuff in the Players Association. Maybe they did. So that's going to be a coin flip. That's the best way you can deal with that. Right. And kudos to Hamlin. I don't say he's fully recovered, but he's like up and doing things now, so which is incredible. So that's great. That always comes first, right? You know, player, and it's not even like he got hurt, like in the sense of the game, like he had a neck injury or a leg injury or something. He like had cardiac arrest or whatever, like on the field. Like you're not expecting that as an athlete. You're like, oh my god, I just. You know. Anyway, Bills Bengals neutral site, right? It's a neutral site. I wonder where they're gonna play it. They should play it in a dome like Detroit again. So Bills played in Detroit that one game because of all that snow. They should do that because then it's even to both teams because they're both cold weather teams. You know, so play it in a dome and let them both go nuts. You know, because that could be a high scoring game. That's gonna be a great game. That's gonna be a great game, and I think the AFC Championship will be a great. I think it's gonna be Chiefs, and I don't know who's gonna win that Bills Bengals game honestly, but AFC Championship would be a good one. With football, you never know what could happen. NFC, we'll go to the team first. The Giants beat the Vikings, and a lot of people were picking the Giants to win that game. They played in the regular season, and I think the Vikings had a nice lead, and they started to blow it, and the Giants lost. But people were like, the Vikings are that team that, and I know this because Denver was in this position a few times back when they made the playoffs. Even with Peyton, when they lost to the Colts the year before they won the Super Bowl, the year after they got blown out, they had that team where you're like, they could lose, and they did. You know, there's something about them, and the Vikings were that team, and the Vikings lost. Their defense apparently is complete garbage. Daniel Jones looked incredible, but he threw for a couple of touchdowns. He did something that no quarterback's ever done. He ran for like 70-plus yards and a TD and threw for like 300 or some shit with TDs. So he's going to... A lot of people think they should give him the franchise tag. I think someone was saying it's like $45 million, which is nuts, but he might be better off just throwing him that money and seeing if he does well next year. Because this is what happens in football. I don't think Jones is terrible, but he seems like a game manager, right? Like a Trent Dilfer type. But he can run, which is a nice wild card to have, right? That's the thing. Remember Matt Flynn, the Seahawks signed him. This is before they drafted Russell. Actually, I think they drafted Russell Wilson the same year, and he immediately got the job in training camp Wilson, and that obviously paid off for them. But Matt Flynn had one good game as a Packer because they rested Rodgers, and football does that. A guy has one good game, you're like, here's a bunch of money, and the guys don't pay off that much. Derek Anderson had one good year. Guys get paid a ton of money and they don't pan out, right? So I can understand the Giants not wanting to go nuts and be like, we'll pay him a ton of money in this franchise here and see what he does. Because you'd be better off because, I mean, in football, you can just, well, no, quarterbacks he'll get guaranteed money that you're screwed. You can cut him whenever, but we'll see what they do. But he had a great game, and they got to play the Eagles. Hurts is back for the Eagles, so that's going to be a closer game than I think people think it's going to be, but I think the Eagles win it. But the Giants, this is what the Giants do. It's usually all or nothing for the Giants in the playoffs. It has been for a while. At least in the Eli years it was. They did the Super Bowl in 2000, so they almost got all, but it wasn't nothing. But that game went, I think Kirk Cousins, it was a 4th and 8, he threw a check down. People were flipping out on one side and saying, what the hell's wrong with him? And other people, it's the only open player he had. Maybe at that point, you just chuck it somewhere and hope for the best. I don't know. I still think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback, but he's 1-4 in the playoffs now, so you always look at the quarterback. But they were that team. They were a minus point differential because they got blown out a bunch of games and played a lot of close ones. So at worst, that was going to be a close win for them. And they lost. It always happens in the playoffs in the NFL. There's always a team that you're like, they were good, but are they really that good? And then they lose that playoff game. Like I said, Denver's been there before. I've seen Denver do it. It's happened, you know. The Chiefs have been there, not with Mahomes, obviously, but before that. You know, the Chargers with Phillip Rivers were that team. Granted, they were losing. No, because they would lose those games to other teams like the Jets and stuff at home. They did it a lot. Like I said, Denver was there a few times. I'm like only going by AFC and West teams here. The Chiefs would do it back in the 90s, too, when Marty Schottenheimer was the coach. And then he was doing it when he was at the Chargers. My coach. The Cowboys have been this team plenty of times with Romo and with other guys. You know, where you're just like, they're going to lose that game. And they do. They have, like, home field throughout, and they lose that game. Or they're second, and they get the bye, and they lose that game. Football's crazy like that. A lot of teams have been there, though, where you're the team where you think, and you're like, no. You hate to say fraud, but you are that team that can lose that first game. Like, they're shaky. They're a shaky team where if you're a fan, you're like, oh, no. And it happens. I've been there with Denver a few times in the 90s and with the Peyton years. Not so much with anybody else because they were never, like the Jake Plummer years, they did get past Brady. And then they lost to the Steelers at home, but they did get that first game. But they were looking at Denver. I remember that game like, oh, the mighty Brady. This is even back. This is when Brady had only won 3. And Denver gave him his first playoff loss. Good old Jake Plummer. What was the other game before the Monday night game? Oh, who was it? I'd honestly give this a 9 out of 10. Let me go back to this for a second. It's really good. It maintained that taste throughout. I like that strawberry cream taste. Went down smooth. That's what it was. This is smooth for an energy drink, I will say that. A lot of energy drinks I have are not as smooth as this one. I'd give this a 9 out of 10, and I would absolutely drink this again. I really like this one. Check this one out if you haven't. Ultra Rosa Monster Energy. San Francisco, Seattle. Seattle was keeping this one close, similar to the Bills-Dolphins game, but it went south quicker. That guy Brock Purdy again has a nice game. People were saying this, I don't think the 49ers would do this, but they're like, oh, Brady's going to go to the Niners at some point because he grew up a Niner fan and all this shit. Why would the Niners get Brady at like age 46 or whatever he's going to be for like one solid year when you have this guy Purdy? Who knows what he's going to do? He's only had a small sample size. Garoppolo is still a solid quarterback. People like to rag on him, but the dude's solid. And then they have the Lance, but it's Trey Lance. You can say, here comes Brady. Everybody else is like, what the hell? And then he doesn't pan out, and then everybody else is like, I want to leave. Niners got a great D. They shut it down. The Seahawks still had a great year. You know, Geno Smith had a great year. They had a great year, you know. They have Denver's 5 pick, so going there like the Lions. The Lions have the Rams high pick now, too. These teams are just going to add. The Lions had a good year as well. They missed the playoffs, but with 9-8. They're just going to start stacking players. If their draft picks do well, the Seahawks and them are going to be great now. Goff is better than Smith, I think, and Geno Smith, if he comes back down to earth, you have a problem at quarterback. If he plays solid like he did this year, you're in great shape. Great shape going forward. So that's a successful year for the Seahawks as well. And they look good. I mean, they have McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and if Brock Purdy plays well, they're going to do well. They got to play the Cowboys. I'll talk about that game. That's going to be a solid game, too, I think. I think the Niners take it, but I think that'll be a good game. Look at that Bucks-Cowboys game in the second here. San Fran looks good. Denver beat San Francisco. That was like the second or third game of the year, and Denver barely beat them. Denver's wins were like struggles early in the year, the few that they had. I was like, oh my God. But that's when San Francisco was before they won 10 in a row, or whatever it was. Well, now it's more than that because they won the playoff game. San Fran looks good. They got a great defense. And if this guy Purdy keeps. Can you imagine this dude goes from the last pick in the draft to quarterbacking a Super Bowl champion? That would be nuts. A lot of people like to say the NFL is scripted, and that would be a hell of a script. Bills Niners would be like the script, right? The Bills come over the emotions of what happened to Hamlin, and San Francisco has the last pick in the draft, leading. But I'm thinking San Francisco Eagles on the one side. I'm gonna say Chiefs Bengals again. I don't know, the Bengals. The Burrow is that guy who is just cold, and not a bad person, but cold, and he's got the confidence, and he's just got that cold demeanor where he's like, I know I'm gonna win type. Except the Super Bowl against the Rams, but still, I think it's gonna be Bengals Chiefs again, and I think it's gonna be Eagles and Niners, but I could be completely wrong. There's a good chance I am because football is crazy. And that other game, Cowboys Bucks. I only saw the final score of this game. The Bucks apparently. A lot of Bucks fans are like, I only like Brady. I hate the team. Apparently, everybody hates their coach. I think Todd Bowles. I think Brady leaves. They didn't really do that well in that game. Dak Prescott played crazy. My friend and I were like, wait, he had 5 TDs and they only scored their own points. And then we saw that the kicker missed 4 extra points. That has to be the first time in history that's ever happened. That's crazy. And apparently they're keeping him. I mean, you kind of have to at this point. It's the playoffs. But here's the thing. That could end up being a problem going forward if he all of a sudden is in a funk and it becomes a Chuck Knobloch in baseball. All of a sudden he can't throw the ball to first base. It's going into the crowd. If everybody remembers, is a Yankee fan or a baseball fan. There was that period where Knobloch was a hell of a player in second base, right? Was he second or was he the shorts? No, he had to be second because they had Jeter, and all of a sudden he started throwing the ball into the crowd. Like he couldn't throw the ball to first base. It was crazy, and he was a Gold Glove fielder. Like it was nuts. If this happens to this kicker and becomes a problem, that will cost the Cowboys a game. They just blew him out, the Bucs, so it didn't matter. That's a big win for the Cowboys too, because a lot of people, the Cowboys have been that team since the 90s, since the Aikman years, Emmitt Smith and all those guys, Irvin, Novacek, Alvin Harper, great defense, Darryl Johnston, awesome offensive line, right? 3 Super Bowls. They've been that team ever since then, like because in the late 90s on to now. Because the Cardinals beat them in a playoff game in the 90s too, and I think the Panthers did. And they started to lose that mojo they had. But now they're always like, oh, the Cowboys aren't winning anything. They're not good enough. They'll lose that game. That's a big win for them. Because that could build them possibly momentum. Because they have a good team. Cowboys absolutely have a good team. They got to play the Niners. That's going to be a classic matchup. Obviously, in the 90s. The Niners and the Cowboys clashed a bunch in the 90s. So that's kind of cool for a classic kind of matchup, rivalry. But yeah, that was 4 missed extra points. You feel for that kicker, man, but he has to get it together because that could literally cost them a game. They got lucky that it didn't matter, because if the Bucs were scoring too, that would absolutely cost them. Say the Bucs scored 28 points, and all of a sudden it comes down to them kicking a field goal, and they lose. Well, no, it was 31 they got, because I guess he got one right. But say they lost by a point, and you're like, oh my God, this guy missed 4 extra points. That's huge, but other than that, I guess they must have looked pretty good, because Prescott was ripping it up, obviously. And their D did well. I mean, the Bucs were shaky all year. They were a losing record division winner, even though they probably rested guys the last game. But it doesn't matter because the Bucs got Brady and they got a Super Bowl. It doesn't matter, and they went to the playoffs all 3 years with him. So it doesn't matter. It's the same thing when Denver got Peyton. They went to 2 Super Bowls. They won 1. They won the division every time. You got your money's worth. You got what you wanted out of that guy. Same thing with the Bucs and Brady. They got a Super Bowl. It's all that matters. Who knows whether he's going to go? He'll play again, though, and he'll be solid. He's like an anomaly. He's like a guy like him, just not even the talent, just the longevity and the talent combined. Like, that's not going to happen again, I don't think. I'm going to say Niners, Eagles, Chiefs, Bengals. And this is going to be completely opposite. It's going to end up being like Bills, Jaguars, freaking Giants, Giants, Cowboys or something. Who knows? I think the Chiefs is a safe bet. But the thing is, you never know. That's what the thing about football. All of a sudden, weird stuff's happening, you know. I do think it's going to be Chiefs. Chiefs, Bengals. It could be Chiefs, Bills, though. Either way, that if it ends up Chiefs, either one of those teams can be a hell of a championship game. But yeah, that's just a Monster Energy Ultra Rosa review. Really good, this one. I go 9 out of 10. This is a good one, man. This is my favorite one, I think. I think I'm going to drink this again. I don't do that with the other ones. I drink them once and I'm done. I don't want to drink them again, but this one, I would drink again. And an NFL recap. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Like I said, I don't know everything that happened. I'm only going best of my knowledge and stuff. But if you guys want to see more of me recapping stuff, I'll probably do it with a drink review just to add out the videos into being almost an half hour. But thanks for checking